Hello, this is Miracle Dayback Life's touching story radio
A program
that delivers stories filled with
and
life's
warm
emotions. The story I'm going to tell you today is a beautiful story of sympathy, love, and a family intertwined like fate. Perhaps it's a story that transcends the familiar conventions of our society, because it is a somewhat shocking story about the love between a father-in-law and a daughter-in-law, but I hope you will consider the pure devotion and true love behind it. This will be a moving story that will make you reflect on what true humanism is in our time. A dark cloud began to gather over a seemingly ordinary family when they learned that their daughter-in-law, Kim
had an
Sun-young,
incurable disease.
Sun-young was a bright and warm woman, just like her name. Even before her marriage, everyone around her remembered her as a sunshine person, Sun-young, who knew how to be grateful for even the smallest things, and had a kind heart that was always the first to lend. A helping hand to a neighbor in need, became a wife to a man and a daughter-in-law to a family. It's been over 10 years since she came into the world. Her mother-in-law passed away a long time ago, and Sun-young took care of the household with her father-in-law, husband, and loving children. She was a wise wife and devoted daughter-in-law who not only managed the household, but also took care of her father-in-law's health. Anyone who saw it would see that it was a happy and harmonious family. Every morning, Sun-young offered her father-in-law a cup of warm tea and prepared a hearty meal for her husband as he came home from work. Wherever her hands touched, the warmth of happiness filled the air. But faced with a diagnosis as shocking as a bolt from the blue, Sun-young's life began to be shaken to its core. The disease she was diagnosed with was a rare incurable disease, and the treatment process was painful and expensive. To be more specific, it was amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as ALS. A degenerative neurological disease, it is widely known as a disease in which the brain and spinal cord motor neurons are gradually muscle destroyed. Weakness and loss of motor function. It is said to be a very painful, rare disease, with symptoms such as muscle weakness in the arms and impairment and breathing difficulties. When Sun-young heard this news from the hospital diagnostic room, her heart sank. I used to lose sleep at night, wiping away tears alone, thinking that it would be a huge burden not only to myself, but also to my family. Some of you may be familiar with this incurable disease, but it is rare for someone to be born with it. And most of the time, healthy people suddenly develop it one day. Therefore, it is a very dangerous disease that all of you watching this broadcast should always pay attention to. In Sun-young's case, she said she only found out about it after undergoing a regular health checkup one day without even knowing it. In any case, what broke her heart even more than her worsening illness was none other than her husband's attitude. The husband, who had been a womanizer since the beginning of their marriage, showed his true colors as if he had been waiting for Sun-young to fall ill was sick as an excuse to stay out all night, and he even treated her like a nuisance and did not hesitate to verbally abuse her. "I don't even want to look at you. You're unlucky," said Sun-young, whose energy was weakened by illness and whose face was clearly sick. He said harsh words like, "Because of your illness, our family is going to be ruined," at a time when his beloved wife needed comfort and encouragement. The husband instead asked Sun-young for a divorce. He thought his sick wife was holding him back. His eyes were blind to his wife's suffering, and only his own desires existed. He pressured Sun-young to divorce every day, further weakening her mentally. Sun-young fell into an indescribable despair at her husband's actions. Her own illness was difficult to bear, but the fact that she had been abandoned by her beloved husband made her even more devastated. Sun-young clung to her husband for the last time, but he only turned a cold back. The more you do that, the more nauseating it becomes. You understand? Your family has had that disease for generations. You must have inherited that trait, he said, spewing out unspeakably nasty words. Sun-young had no choice but to sign the divorce papers. She had grown so attached to... Although I was in a situation where I had nowhere to go due to my illness, I no longer wanted to live a miserable life
Sun Young's luggage
dependent
was
on
light.
my husband. The sight of her fighting illness and seemingly losing everything broke the hearts of those who saw her. The person who watched Sun Young with the greatest pity was none other than her, Park Seong-chul. Having lived his entire life diligently, he felt deep guilt and anger when he saw his son neglecting Sun Young. Even though he was his own son, he could not tolerate the sight of his sick wife being abandoned. Moreover, Sun Young lost her parents in a car accident when she was young, and even her relatives did not accept her. So she grew up moving from one orphanage to another. And the only place she could go was the Korean restaurant, where she worked and had a place to stay before she got married. The father-in-law, who was well aware of the situation, felt as if his heart was torn apart every time his son was cruel to Sun Young. Although he couldn't show it in front of his son, he scolded him countless times in his heart. The father-in-law stayed by Sun Young's side without saying a word. When my son was away, he would secretly visit me and give me some warm food and pocket money. He would personally make and bring Sun Young's favorite side dishes or secretly give her some medicinal herbs. When Sun Young shed tears over medical expenses, you comforted her by generously giving her your retirement funds. Sun Young, don't worry because you have a father. You will definitely get better. He tried to encourage me by saying, Father will not give up on you, so don't give up on yourself. Even when his son ruthlessly demanded a divorce and kicked Sun Young out of the house, his father-in-law couldn't bear to watch. You brought Sun Young, who had nowhere to go, despite her illness, to your house. Of course, my son was vehemently opposed. Father, why are you bringing a divorced woman into the house? This is nonsense, the son shouted, but he could not break his father-in-law's firm will. My father-in-law spoke firmly. Father does not abandon a cowardly and sick person like you. Know that this father will do for you what you could not do as a human being. So even after the divorce, Sun Young remained under the care of her father-in-law. Father-in-law cared for his daughter-in-law, Sun Young, as if she were his own daughter. I prepared and fed her food with care, accompanied her to the hospital without fail, and stayed by her side. Whenever Sun Young was having a hard time, he would gently stroke her back or arms with warm hands, giving her courage and comfort. There were many days when you couldn't even sleep properly, because you were caring for Sun Young late into the night. He never showed any signs of fatigue and always smiled, worrying about Sun Young's well-being. Moreover, this incurable disease required frequent massages of the patient's limbs, relaxation of the muscles, with warm water and frequent foot baths, so the father-in-law's hard work was no different from hard labor. Despite this, the father-in-law showed no sign of being annoyed. Instead, he hummed a cheerful trot song and took great care of his daughter-in-law's illness in a fun and enjoyable way, as if he were soothing a child. So at some point, Sun Young, the daughter-in-law, who received her father-in-law's comical treatment, began to sing along to her father-in-law's trot songs without even realizing it. One day, he even sang a song called My Love, like starlight, with his father-in-law. In this way, Sun Young gradually regained hope under her father-in-law's devoted care. Above all, I was deeply moved by the warm heart of my father-in-law, who truly cared for me. What sustained her through the difficult times of battling illness was her father-in-law's unconditional love. Seeing her father-in-law rekindled her will to live. For this person's sake, I absolutely must get better. The father-in-law also began to feel new emotions while caring for Sun Young. At first, my feelings started out of regret for my son and sympathy for my daughter-in-law. But I gradually became captivated by Sun Young's bright and pure appearance and her strength to not lose her will to live, even while fighting illness. He found true beauty in Sun Young's eyes and her smile, and in every little action she showed. The two spent times together, That would have been unbearable without each other, forming a bond deeper and more profound than anything else in the world. A feeling of true love, beyond mere sympathy or pity, began to sprout. Their conversations deepened, and they came to understand
better than anyone
else. Our love deepened as we comforted each other's pain and shared each other's joy. And fate shook this family once again. The tragic news was delivered to Sun Young's ex-husband, the son of her father-in-law, who had cruelly abandoned her and started a new family. He was driving on the highway after drinking with his new wife when an argument ensued, and he was hit by a large truck, killing him on the spot. His new wife was also seriously injured and taken to the hospital, but she eventually died. This news brought great shock and sadness to my father-in-law and Sun Young. No matter how cruel my son was, I felt sad as a father. And as a man who was once my husband, the father-in-law was deeply saddened by his son's tragic death. Even though they are divorced, Sun Young also expressed her sorrow with complex emotions, as he was once a husband she loved. But on the other hand, his death also served as an opportunity to further his father-in-law and Sun Young. After news of his son's death spread, including the villagers began to understand the relationship between his father-in-law and Sun Young. I learned how irresponsible and cruel my son had been to Sun Young, and how devotedly my father-in-law had cared for her. People began to share the father-in-law's deep humanity and Sun Young's suffering, and began to accept their relationship as a true love that went beyond mere sympathy. In particular, as the assessment that the son's death was self-inflicted became dominant, the relationship between the father-in-law and Sun Young began to be viewed in an increasingly positive light. The story of a father who cultivated the seeds his son had sown, and even discovered true love in the process, resonated deeply with many. Around that time, thanks to her father-in-law's devoted care, Sun Young's condition improved remarkably. Her health recovered so quickly that even doctors called it a miracle. When Sun Young returned home from the hospital, she was a completely different person. His face was bright, and his eyes were filled with hope once again. Sun Young, who regained her health, expressed her deep gratitude to her father-in-law. She knelt before her father-in-law and said, with tears in her eyes, "Father, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been in this world long ago. My father is my savior, and the one who brought me back to life." She couldn't continue speaking. "Now I will live for my father. I will live by my father's side, dedicating my whole body to serving him." As I said this, I burst into tears that I had been holding back for so long. My father-in-law was also so touched by his daughter-in-law that he couldn't hold back the hot tears that he had been hiding deep in his heart for so long. Then he said, "This isn't the Joseon dynasty. Why are you kneeling like this?" And grabbed his good daughter-in-law's wrist, helped her up, and gave her a warm hug, saying, "Sun Young, it's heaven that is helping you right now. You have a bright future ahead of you, so no matter what, if you focus on your health above all else, you will be able to live happily." He never lost his efforts to instill hope in you. Could this very moment be called a miracle? A loud commotion was heard outside the door, followed by the sound of someone knocking on the door, shouting, "Can't open it, quickly!" When the daughter-in-law, Sun Young, was startled and escaped from her arms, she was embarrassed. My father-in-law said, "It looks like Sun Young brought a birthday cake," and quickly ran to open the door. Outside the door, in addition to the bakery delivery man, many elderly people and women from the neighborhood came in with bouquets of flowers in their hands, and they put up a sign on the living room wall that they had written in saying, "A love is beautiful," and prepared a very grand birthday party for Sun Young. Beyond simple sympathy or pity, their eyes were filled with a deep and profound love for each other. They confirmed their deep love for each other and began a new life with the blessings of those around them. Their story goes beyond simple compassion, demonstrating the unconditional love and devotion of human beings, and the possibility of beautiful relationships blossoming even in the face of adversity. Many applauded their courageous choice. It was a touching story that made me realize how important true love and devotion to one another are, rather than the conventional wisdom or gaze of society. Their stories raise profound questions for us. What exactly defines the form of love? A blood relationship, even if not, isn't the love that blossoms from embracing and comforting each other's pain something more noble and beautiful than anything else? The story of father-in-law and Sun Young is a touching humanistic tale, showing how a heart born from sympathy and compassion can transform into true love. The contrast between the son's unfortunate and the father-in-law's upright heart and Sun Young's devotion in response leaves a gentle yet profound resonance in our society. This story makes us rethink the forms of family and the definition of love we commonly think of. It vividly shows how powerful and great a true human love, unbound by formality and convention, can be, and how that love can transform a person's life. Sun Young, who was in danger of being left alone with her ailing body, was able to come back to life thanks to her father-in-law's love. And the father-in-law, amidst the grief of losing his son and the disappointment he felt about him, was able to find new meaning and happiness in life through Sun Young. They become each other's most needed beings, overcoming the world's prejudices and difficulties to achieve true love. Although this story has many dramatic elements, at its heart lies the universal values of deep understanding and compassion for humanity and unconditional love. So rather than viewing their relationship as an ethical issue, many people embrace it as a touching, beautiful film in the countless relationships we all experience throughout our lives. We are reminded of the importance of truly caring for, loving, and dedicating ourselves to one another. Father-in-law and Sun Young. This story reminds us that the true meaning of family lies not only in blood ties, but also in the hearts of those who understand and support one another. Father-in-law and Sun Young transcended societal perceptions creating and stereotypes with only pure love and devotion. Their courageous choices resonate deeply with our society, making us reflect on what true humanity means. Love sometimes flows in unpredictable directions, but whatever form of love you have, if it's based on mutual respect and care, it will surely bear beautiful fruit. The story of father-in-law and Sun Young is living proof of the greatness of such love. I hope their stories have touched your hearts and given you a sense of deep reflection. If so, please subscribe and like. We earnestly request that you please click and leave many comments congratulating your father-in-law and Sun Young on their new beginning. A radio theater show filled with heartwarming and life stories success of for seniors. We'll be back next time with another heartwarming story that will warm your hearts. Thank you. Rest in peace.